Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Dialed In on the 2019 KTM 450SX. We've got a long day out here at Glen Helen putting some laps on this thing. We've had a couple days on it now and I feel like we got a pretty good starting point. And the good news for those of you that have picked one of these up is they're very, very close in stock trim. There's not a lot of work that needs to be done. But let's go over a few things. I'll start with suspension. I would say the good air pressure, a good air pressure to start at is just what they recommend. It's about 153 PSI. It's converted to bar on the sticker here, but that's a good starting point for an average 450 weight rider, 185, 190. Being a little bit lighter, I went down to 150 PSI, just slightly lighter, and I actually opened up compression a few clicks. I did the same thing with the shock. They recommend 105 millimeters of sag, and really try to stay close to that number. And then I opened up my high speed a half a turn and the low speed about 4 clicks, just to get it to sit, kind of sit down in turns a little bit better, kind of settle in, and then just get a little softer feel for me. Glen Helen here, we've got some little chatter and chop, and I was trying to get that to just sort of be a little more compliant through there. And it worked, just those small changes. I didn't change any of my rebound and didn't bother messing with fork height. Everything felt really, really comfortable the way it was. I will say one thing I had, and this I would recommend no matter what kind of bike you get to check this. When I took off, the bike was brand new and the steering stem felt right. But after we rode a little bit, it started to get loose. Everything seated in, and it was so loose this thing would just fall over really easily. And as a result, out there, when I would transition from accelerating into braking, I was getting kind of a nervous front end feel. And I was scratching my head for a minute, going, man, what do I need to do to get rid of that? Do I need to firm it back up? And we just loosened this. You got to be sure you loosen your top triple clamp as well. Loosened those up, tightened this down a touch, and reset everything, just so that it's not hard to turn. It just gave it a little bit of resistance, and that's all it took to get rid of that nervous feeling. So it's a very easy check or a little adjustment to make that will make a big difference in the way the front end of your bike feels. So regardless of the brand of bike you get, keep an eye on that. Make sure it's not too loose. Tightening that up a little bit will make a big difference. And I didn't do anything else for handling on this thing. Like I said, they've done a really good job of coming up with a stock setting that works. And it'll cover a very broad spectrum of riders, weights and abilities, and feel really good. So they've done a good job. Again, the spring conversion kit is something you can do in this fork if you really have trouble with it. It's just going to cost you some money, and this is great for most people. As far as the engine stuff goes, the power is I think it's a little bit better than last year's bike. They've done some mapping changes. They've done some exhaust changes. The head's different. And all that comes down to in terms of setup is you need to really get comfortable with your two maps. So there's a standard and an aggressive map that come in here, and then you've got traction control, obviously that'll go into either map. So you got 4 different positions, and it really just depends on the type of track you're riding and kind of what you prefer. So most of the time I've found myself liking the standard map. It's a little smoother, a little easier to ride. I can make fewer mistakes, ride longer. But if I get sandy dirt, or like out here we get the big hills at Glen Helen, and I was actually liking the aggressive map, but with the traction control on, because we get kind of slick little ruts out here and hard packed sections, and the traction control would keep it from lighting up when it would hit that. So it was kind of the best of both worlds, but you really need to get comfortable playing with the traction control on and off. I mean, you could get to where you just, you're changing this thing mid-moto. It's a cool feature, and it does make a big difference. I don't think enough people really use that traction control device. As far as gearing goes, I think it's perfect. I wouldn't change it unless you're a really heavy guy. Don't listen to the folks that tell you to add a tooth. I don't think it's necessary. Couple of little things that I noticed. My brake pedal and the shifter are both a little bit further out. And back in 17, they went to longer, a bigger gap between the peg and those controllers. So if you go back to 2016, you can order the standard brake pedal for this, and it's actually further back. Or look at aftermarket stuff. If you've got big feet, you're going to like this. If you've got short feet, if you're sort of an economy-sized motocrosser like me, you may want to look at an aftermarket brand to bring those back towards you. I just found myself occasionally kind of swinging and missing when I'd go for the shifter. So check that out. One more thing we changed. There's the 250 comes with a shorter throw here in the throttle tube assembly. And I found that occasionally to get this thing to full throttle, I was chicken winged way down. So we went to the 250 throttle cable piece in there, and it just makes a shorter throw. And for me, it's just easier to modulate. I don't have to worry about re-gripping so deep, or being so deep down in the, down by my elbow, by my ankle, to make the thing run. So check that out. I'd say that's a good change to make. Boy, what else? I mean, there's not a lot else to this thing. It's really good right away. The traction's great. It comes with great tires, wheels. The brakes are awesome, second to none. Clutch worked really well. No complaints there. Nothing to really recommend to you. I did check with KTM. I said, hey, do you recommend pulling apart these bikes when they're brand new and greasing everything? He said KTM actually does a good job of giving a liberal amount of grease to all these. He goes, it's not really necessary. Some of the Japanese manufacturers tend to be skimpy with the grease. He said it's not something you really need to worry about here, so you can save yourself some time if you're on the fence. But you're not going to have a whole lot of things about this bike that you don't like or need to change. That's one of the great things about it. They spent a lot of time getting this exhaust to work. I think it looks cool, it sounds cool, it works really well. So if you're going to spend some money, throw it into handling or graphics or something else cool looking. It's a great bike. I hope you enjoy yours. I hope these settings work for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next Dialed In.